Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this luxury beluga flight all the way to Seoul. And a special message to our VIP travellers. We'll get there when we get there. No, you can't change your mind halfway through. You can definitely not have a cookie.
And if I see even one of you looking at one of my escape pods, so help me God.
Well, greetings, friends, and welcome back. And that's really the point, though, isn't it? Because if you're flying this eggshell of a thing, then you're really wanting to transport VIP customers, otherwise there's not a great deal of point. Incidentally, did you see what I called it? Couldn't help myself. Right, let's jump in there. So here is the view that potential passengers might have. It's a nice long bench in front of me here, which you could, rest your arm on as you're waiting for this thing to be ready to board. And I say eggshell, not just because of its appearance, but also because of this thing's fragility. I have bought this thing many times. I have sold it just as many times because I have found it absolutely useless in doing its innate function, which is transporting VIPs, because pirates come after them and then they get blown up. I mean, look, to be honest, you can probably fit normal passengers into a cutter, an anaconda, and anything else that isn't this hunk of fragile stuff. But anyway, that's just me. The front of the cockpit from the outside is probably a good 30 meters across, and you can see it sort of has two stories, and vertically I would say that those two stories are about the two stories of a double-decker bus. So it is quite a substantial looking front cockpit. From the outside here you can see that we have the top skylight there, which in itself is probably 30 or 40 meters. Then there's this section here, which is probably another 15 meters, and my second special message to the VIPs: shh. So now we'll step out of where you can normally see yourself to have a look at Commander Headless. The thing that strikes me straight away is that this looks very steampunky, with brass inlays, especially these levers down here that look like I really want to just pull them and work out what happens. They're quite short levers on both sides, you can see, but they don't go anywhere, but I wonder what on earth they actually do. And it's not really until you're sitting here in VR that you see these levers and you think, that's just begging to be activated. What is it? All right, I'm clearly obsessed. I'll stop talking about levers. So, starting off in the basic idea of this view, look, everything's kind of the same. Dinner plate size screen, this is about 80, this is about a bowl, the standard drill. But what I'm more interested in is the materials and the feel of this place. And you really don't get the feel in 2D because, you're not really seeing the distances, but also the depths of certain things and also the thinness of certain things. So for example, behind that purple wall, that entire canopy area looks like it's probably only a few inches thick. And again, it gives you the idea that you're inside an egg. And yes, the interior of this cockpit area, or the command deck, if you will, is probably that 30 meters in width that we saw from the outside, or maybe a little bit more. You'll note that you can't actually, I don't know what I just hit, you can't actually see the upstairs area. So right above us is that second window that we saw earlier, but obviously we can't see in there from this vantage point. So let's start off at the front here and having a look at some of these materials and how this thing is put together. You can see that it's sort of meant to be like a polished aluminium or something or other, but they've done a good job in putting some chips and scratches and, wear and tear marks and stuff into it. If I'm shoving my face right up into it, you can see them. Down through it is just the plain sort of outside of the ship, and just like the Dolphin and the Orca, it has a purpley looking, velvety kind of material on the inside of the dash. Standing right here over the front, you can obviously see that the thing comes out about the bonnet's width of a van, really, and then just disappears down the cliff. And we are probably, I'd say we're 3 stories up, standing where we are here. So this is obviously a very high ship, as you know from looking at it from the outside. We'll also see that the black area has been removed when you're outside here. So perhaps we can have a bit of a glance up there from a different camera angle. We'll see if we can make that happen. The rest of the dash proceeds as previously with these gold inlaid trims. It looks entirely unnecessary in my humble opinion, but I guess it's kind of cool with gold and brass and stuff everywhere. And down next to these levers we have the classic low-res Saud Kruger bent displays which show nothing. something like a speaker or something down there that I can't really get to, and just a very plain interior underneath the feet repeated over there. You can see that the commander's chair is based on a bit of a plinth. It's not actually centered on the plinth though. You can see it kind of looks like it should have been pushed forward another 5 or 6 inches. So it's sort of hanging off the back there, which is a bit strange. Bit of a hatch down here that doesn't seem to indicate anything apart from warning with some very low res font that I won't be able to read. And over here we have more switches that, again, I didn't really notice were there until I'm looking at them from this side and in VR. And they don't really go anywhere either. And, you know, slots for your CDs. And jumping back here to the rear of the command deck, we have a really nice commanding view of everything, of the 3 seats there in front, probably 10 or so, maybe 8 meters away from me where I'm standing at the moment. And at the rear, we have this wall emblazoned with the Saud Kruger icon, which is a bit glitchy, and this panel, which indicates absolutely nothing. If we stick our head through that, we start to see some of the interior of the rear, which we'll obviously get to in a minute, but nothing particularly interesting back here. Now, the view from the first co-pilot seat here on the right is much as you might expect. The commander's over there, so I'm right on the edge here, and another bent display that shows us nothing, more bent displays that show us nothing, and stuff that shows us nothing. But at least we can walk in this direction and see a little bit more about what's here. So we have these panels that's sticking up, so they sort of look like they're about the thickness of a really thick cutting board, so maybe like 1.5 to 2 inches in thickness, and they have no rear, and they are displaying some stuff. Below that, some carbon fiber inlays, more brass inlays here, which I can almost touch in real life. There's something there that feels very much like that. Now that's creepy when that happens. Another one of these bent displays, green light. I mean, you know, it's kind of very basic. And in a way, it sticks to this Saud Kruger tradition of not providing you with a huge amount of detail. That fire extinguisher over there looks like it's trying to be red, but it's very faded unless it has some sort of light white cover over the top of it or something. And then we're getting close to the door. Well, I say close, probably 5 meters away from it. More bent panels and low res stuff that, you know, to be honest, I mean, I can't get there because, well, none of the cameras let me. But even if I could, I mean, you can sort of see all of the detail from here, to be perfectly honest. There's nothing more to see close up because it's made out of these low-res panels. One little step down here into this co-pilot's area, and then just inlays in the floor, another one of those hatches, and yep, that's it. Big wide open space. I'd say it's about the length almost of a tennis court, really. That's how it feels in here. It feels very spacious. You could definitely play a game of tennis, or table tennis would be set up, you know, over there in front of that black screen. I don't know, I'm obviously losing my mind, but I'm just trying to give you the feel of what it's like in here. Basically big, wide, open, empty space with not much in. Now from the second co-pilot's area, if I'm standing as far away from it as I can in my room, yeah, you can see up there that, yeah, unfortunately, they have kept that area blacked out. So we can't actually see up there, which is a bit of a shame. Who knows what's up there? But also you can see that that lip of the underside actually goes up another sort of 50 centimeters with all those overhead lockers up into that black section up the top. So it probably even wouldn't be high enough to, it'll be high enough to sit in and look out, but that'd be almost about it. So probably there's actually nothing up there. Whatever that module is in the center on the roof is probably some sort of a computing module or navigation or something. So perhaps it's just a maintenance area for whatever that module is. Just a thought. But again, just like the other Saud Kruger ships, you can see that the black has been removed from the outside when you're on the interior view. But from this angle, I suppose it gives you a nice view of how far back the commander is with respect to the actual pylons of the windows. So you can just sort of see how far back the co-pilot sits, as well as how far back the commander sits, based on, you know, where that windshield would otherwise be. And sticking my head through the front dash to look back at the commander and the co-pilots, you know, it looks as you might expect, but there's your view of that with the red velvet there. And a friendly orca appearing out of nowhere over there. Probably actually doing the real work while we're just staring at things over here. Now on the other side here we have a repeat of the previous door. There, I can't get to it, but there appears to be some sort of a number pad on that side that you would presumably enter a code into to access. I don't know, you're already in the most secure area. Why would you need a code to get out? Okay, don't ask silly questions. And it says there, unlocked. Okay. Pressurized, breathable, nitrogen, oxygen, access to D1, janky tracking, low-res stuff. Another one of those widened out fire extinguishers over there. So now, I guess the only thing left to do is to go through, inverted commas, go through the doors. We can't actually get there, so we just have to smash our face through this wall. And that's about as far into this interior that I can get. And it's really janky. So, bear with me. So you can see that the corridor obviously goes around the corner a little bit to those doors, nicely illuminated with an overhead LED, and then it disappears into the vastness of unrendered, that word. And the other side is identical. So yes, unfortunately, there is no reveal here as to the interior or any idea of things that might be on the inside. I was hoping that at least there'd be some sort of, deck system roughly laid out, but no. And so, unfortunately, even looking at this thing on ground or flying a fighter into it wouldn't yield any more than what we're seeing here, which is a bit of a shame. So the gear appears to not be accessible, as in it's not a stairway, so there has to be doorways to get into this ship, and all the gear appears to be the same. We obviously have the cargo bay there just behind the front landing gear, and the fighter bay beyond that. Two very big engines there at the back, probably the size of a small hatchback lying sideways, and draw a line around that. That's about the size of those engines at the back from this vantage point, certainly. The other issue with this thing that I personally don't like is the presence of the 5 medium hardpoints, which, if you're faced with any pirate who's not flying a Sidewinder, you're pretty much buggered. And we'll watch these huge landing gear come up as we take off. They're probably a good 2 stories high in and of themselves, to be honest, when they're sitting there, especially with those orange struts. Let's see how these fold up. Probably straight through the hard point. No, in fact, they managed to miss it by about a foot. And the unfortunate thing is that that's kind of it. I mean, it's a giant, giant ship designed predominantly to carry passengers. Oh, that top thing very nearly clips the top of that entryway. But really, unless you're carrying VIPs, there's not a huge amount of use. I mean, let me know in the comments below what you use this thing for, because I certainly haven't found a use for it in my play. And unfortunately, friends, that's kind of it. For as interesting as this thing is or isn't to you, the interior is pretty much non-existent, despite their hope that there would be something there for us to look at. So obviously Frontier has got a monumental amount of work ahead of them if they're going to introduce spacelegs into something like the Beluga, where, we're expecting luxury areas, swimming pools, carousel rides, bars and bistros, and people running around and enjoying the scenery and stuff. And what we have is an empty eggshell. Yes. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed that one, and I'll see you in the next one. Fly safe, Commanders.